Bueno, bienvenidísimos. Esto es nuestro 10º Agile Critics. Hoy tenemos el honor de tener un gran exponente. Me corresponde a mí presentarlo y creo que la mejor forma de presentar a Klaus es decir que lo conocí a través de sus libros, lo conocí a través de un par de libros de él, en particular este libro que creo que me ha cautivado un montón frente a todo lo que pude encontrar enriquecer desde que lo leí. Me encanta la forma y sentía que era un libro escrito desde la experiencia, un libro escrito desde estar, como decimos muchos en agilidad, desde las trincheras, y encontrarnos a Klaus pues fue un punto importante. Ahora bien, conocerlo en persona es encontrarse una persona que ha estado trabajando fuertemente, que ha estado conectado con el tema, que ha estado realmente implementando y que finalmente cada tanto decide llevar toda su experiencia a un libro y esto ha sido fundamental, sobre todo para muchos de nosotros que estamos en este medio de agilidad. Entonces, para mí es un honor presentar a Klaus, agradecerle a Klaus por estar aquí y bienvenidísimos todos.
Cool, thanks for having me.
Klaus, todo tuyo, adelante.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jose, for the kind words. Yeah, hello everybody. Hello from Austria. I'm from Austria, Vienna, Austria. So there's a 6-hour time difference, and I didn't have dinner until now, but I will do this right after our show here. Okay, so I don't know exactly what's on the slide here, but I guess it's a translation. Oops, sorry. I guess it's a translation. What? Now it's working. I guess it's a translation of this, because the idea is that I would like to share, yeah, a little bit about flight levels today. And well, I think flight levels is the missing link to business agility. So business agility is a term that's being used these days all the time. And I think with flight levels, yeah, it's somehow the missing link to get team agility to a business agility level. So where do we start? I think it makes sense to start with the why, okay? So the why is, so why flight levels would make sense is, I think, captured in this book. The book is called Rethinking Agile. It's, yeah, Jose just showed it before. It's my last book that's being published. And the book, there's a lot of pictures in there, so it's definitely good for managers to read. And the book, I think, is the answer to the question, why flight level? So I don't want to talk about the book, but I think it makes sense to somehow wrap up what's in there, because we want to understand why flight levels make sense. And in the next step, I would like to explain what are we actually doing when we're doing flight levels. Because in the book, I highlight some things, but I don't dig too deep into it. Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to do right now, okay? So the book. There's actually also a Spanish translation, which is called Reconsiderando a Agile. I think that's hopefully, that sounds quite okay for your ears. And you can get it under this URL for only $7 if you like. So it's just for this event. But what is the book about? The book basically tells a story, and it tells a story about an agile transformation. So many organizations are doing an agile transformation these days. And this organization, they had a very particular goal. So it's not like, yeah, we want just to become agile for the sake of being agile. It was like, we really need to improve our time to market. They have seen that their competitors are overtaking them, and they are just trying to keep pace with the competitors. And they were like, no, we need to fundamentally change the way how we work, because otherwise our business is history. So they thought the solution is cross-functional agile product teams. What are cross-functional agile product teams? Well, cross-functional teams, we get many functions in one team, and product team means that one team is only working on one product. So they built a whole bunch of agile teams, and they thought, okay, this would make us agile on the market. But the result was that time to market was not decreasing, but time to market was increasing. So they really spent a shipload of money, and in the end, it was getting worse. And that's kind of strange. And why it was getting worse? 4 problems. I discovered 4 problems when I was working with them. And I would just highlight these 4 problems because I think it really captures the why of flight levels quite nicely. So problem number 1, what I've seen in this organization is they spend too much effort on reorganizing the entire organization. Like, yeah, we need to tear down all these functional silos because silos are bad, and we need to build all these functional teams. But they didn't spend a cross-functional team, sorry, but they didn't spend a lot of effort in the actual interactions between the teams. Why is this important? So what they did, yes, they teared down the functional silos. That's a good thing. However, they basically built cross-functional silos. So the point is, it's not so important what the team structure is, whether these are functional silos or whether these are cross-functional silos. What we need to do is we need to work on these walls between the teams, no matter if it's a cross-functional team or a functional team. So the point is when we say, okay, no actual interactions, what we need to do is we need to somehow drill interaction holes into these walls. So we need to make sure that the right team is working with the right team on the right stuff at the right time. And that's what we call agile interactions. And they didn't spend a lot of effort on it. So they went from cross-functional, they went from functional teams to, they went from cross-functional silos to functional silos. This was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was there was no end-to-end flow. So what I did, I somehow tried to map how this organization is generating value. So we mapped something like a value stream on the board. So from idea to impact, right? And what we see here is all these red fields that, I mean, we are waiting all the time, you know, so we are having something like a pool of new ideas, then we are doing a triage. Someone is working a little bit here, then we are waiting again, a little bit of work. We're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting. We're just waiting all the time, right? And what I also tried to do is, okay, how long are we actually waiting here? And the result was something like this. So we are talking about months, we're talking about years. So just to the point where they start to develop, it could take 2 years. And what they did in their agile transformation, they were like, well, here, we got development. We found our problem. Let's make this development agile, and we are so fucking agile. Hey, just awesome, right? So I don't think this helps a lot, actually, right? So if you just take a very, very small portion of your entire value creation chain and you somehow blow some agile fairy dust into this, your organization won't be agile on the market. So maybe this is agile software development, what they are doing. If you do some agility in this kind of little tiny thing here, maybe that's agile software development, but this has nothing to do with business agility, really nothing. This organization acts lame on the market like before, so there's no change. So this was another problem in this organization. There was no focus on the end-to-end flow. What else? There was no strategic portfolio, no agile strategic portfolio. What does this mean? This organization was working on initiatives, right? Initiatives are really big things, like we want to achieve this and that within the next year, within the next 2 years or something like this. What they then did, they split this initiative into epics. That's just a way how they basically split the initiative. You could also split it into, I don't know, projects, into sub-projects, into whatever. But yeah, they split it into epics. Then they split the epic into stories, and they split the stories into tasks, right? That's what they did. I mean, that's something what a lot of organizations do, and there is nothing bad behind this. I mean, we need to do something like this. But what is the problem? In this organization, as I said before, they were totally focused on teams. So they were like, okay, we need to have this cross-functional agile product teams. And this was the only part that was being agile in this organization. So let's think a little bit what this means. Let's think that we have a lot of agile teams. In this chain, initiative, epic, story, tasks, what is my area of influence as a team? Am I able to somehow decide on the initiatives? Most likely not. On the epics? Most likely not. Maybe I can somehow decide on stories and tasks. And that's exactly the problem in this organization. So the area of influence of a team is like when they want to create focus. They can somehow create focus around stories and tasks. This is the area of influence. But the problem is they have not access to the initiatives in the market. And if we want to speed up initiatives, what we need to do is we need to apply this thinking of stop starting and start finishing on the initiatives. And they couldn't do this because, they were only agile teams. So they were only talking about stories and tasks. So the point is, if we want to manage these initiatives, we need to have higher management on board. And this was totally not a case here. There were just agile teams and nothing else. And there was one more problem in this organization. And then I think we captured the why flight levels couldn't make sense, because we can address these topics with flight levels. And there was one more problem. And problem number 4 was there was no agile change process. So what they basically did is they somehow were inspired by the Spotify model, and they somehow did this reorganization, and they did a huge plan up front, and then they rolled the plan out. And this is actually kind of my humor. So we want to become agile, and the very first thing that pops up in our mind, we do a huge change initiative. We draw a waterfall plan with Gantt charts and everything, and then we roll it out. This is not working. So when your desired state is agility, the way to achieve this desired state has to be agile as well. And this was not taking place in this organization. So these were the 4 problems. So no agile interactions between the team, no end-to-end management of the value stream, no agile change process, and no agile strategic portfolio management. So if you think that you also have some problems at these areas, maybe flight levels might be something that could help. Because what we did to address these problems were we basically established flight levels throughout the entire organization. And I would like to share some ideas how you could do it. So if this is the why flight levels would make sense, because we can address these problems I've just talked about. What are we actually doing when we are doing flight levels? So flight levels, the summary of what is flight levels can be summarized like flight levels can basically help you to find out where in an organization you have to do what in order to achieve the result that you want to achieve. So flight level doesn't tell you you need to do this and everything will be fine. Flight level is more like a tool which helps you to take the right decisions, but you need to take the decisions. Flight levels does not take the decisions for you. It just helps you to understand what's really going on in your organization. And based on this information, you can take the best decisions. And what are you doing when you're doing flight levels? Well, you basically apply 5 activities on 3 levels. And that's it. Let's start with the activities. What are the 5 activities that we are trying to establish in the organization? The first activity is we want to visualize the situation, right? Visualization. So most of the time flight levels is done in some kind of knowledge work context. And the problem with knowledge work is that we don't see our work. We see people typing on the keyboard, but I have no freaking clue what's going on. So if we want to take good decisions, and that's actually what flight levels is for, we need to visualize what's going on. We need to see what's going on. We don't want to we don't want to fly blind, right? We want to fly and see what's going on and take decisions based on what we actually see. So the very first activity is you make your work or your situation visible. The second activity, what we are trying to achieve within flight levels is we want to create focus. What does create focus mean? Well, the easiest thing that, the easiest slogan or phrase that describes create focus is stop starting, start finishing. That's from the COMPAN world. So the slogan, stop starting, start finishing, a lot of people in the COMPAN world say it, but that's exactly the core of creating focus. Why is this important? Well, it's important that we focus our decisions more on finishing work than on starting work. Usually when we have our prioritization meetings and stuff like this, we always decide of what can we start next? What can we start next? Can we push in this project somehow still? And can we add another project? Can we add another project? The point is, you don't earn any money by starting work. You earn money by finishing work. So we want to shift the focus from starting to finishing. One way of creating focus is, a lot of people probably know COMPAN, is working process limits. That's one thing, WIP limits. Another way, what Scrum people are doing is, for instance, time boxes, right? So we could say, okay, we have so many ideas that we want to deliver in our product, but we don't start everything at once. We just start a certain amount where we are sure, okay, that's the stuff that we can deliver within the next, let's say, 2 weeks or so. And when we deliver this, we start new work. So it's also stop starting, start finishing. And there are multiple other ways of how one creates focus. But I think it's highly important that we're creating focus and shift the thinking from starting to finishing work. What else do we need to do? We need to establish agile interactions. Remember, we already talked about the drilling interaction holes into our walls and into our silos. And that's what I mean with agile interaction. Agile interactions means that the right people are talking about the right stuff at the right time. Because you can have the best visualization, you can have the best focus that you're creating in your organization. When the right people are not talking to each other, you won't see any improvement at all. So no framework, no method, nothing is improving your situation. Human beings are the improvement engine. So we need to establish agile interactions so that the right people talk about the right stuff at the right time. Another thing is activity number 4, measure progress. Measure progress means, well, doing flight levels for the sake of doing flight levels is actually quite unsexy. We hopefully want to achieve something with it. And measure progress means, okay, if we know we want to achieve this, how do we know, are we on the right track? Are we getting closer to achieve our goal? For instance, if we want to, like in the company in the book, if you want to improve time to market, it's maybe a smart idea to measure our time to market, our current time to market. And when we see we are improving, we should do more of what we are doing. And when we see, okay, we are not improving, we need to change what we are actually doing. So measurement, we don't do measurements for the sake of doing measurements. A measurement is always a feedback loop, which tells us, are we doing the right thing? Okay, so this is activity number 4. And yeah, we have 5 activities. So there's one more activity, but this activity is like easy. You need to operate your system and you need to improve it. And when you operate and improve, this means you basically circle back to number 1, because when you're operating it and when you're improving it, you find out, oh, wow, we need to tweak our visualization somehow, because then we see other things. We need to somehow tweak our focus. We have identified some more stakeholders we need to involve to establish agile interactions. So the idea is we always circle around here, okay? So when we are doing flight levels, we try to achieve these 5 activities. The output when you're achieving these 5 activities is something like this. This is a board, right? And this somehow makes your situation explicit. So we have a board here, we're trying to create focus. These guys, they have a combination between whip limits. We can see the word whip limit here, but they also have a cadence, like a sprint kind of things. They have meetings in front of this visualization. They measure their progress and they operate and improve it. So if we take a look at this, we can say, wow, so what? I mean, you can do this with COMPAN. This fits also for Scrum. This fits also for design thinking. So what is the difference actually between flight levels and COMPAN design thinking and Scrum and all these things? Because this is quite generic, right? So if you're doing Scrum, you're exactly doing this. If you're doing COMPAN, you're also doing this. Okay, you do loads of other stuff, but this is somehow the core of many agile methods, and that's what you're doing. So what is the thing with flight levels? Well, and I guess that's the important point here. You need to apply these activities on different levels in your organization. So it's not only on the team level, you need to apply these 5 activities on different levels in your organization if you want to achieve business agility. And this is exactly where the flight levels, the term flight levels kicks in, because we can somehow describe these different levels in flight levels. And flight levels is a term from aviation, right? A flight level tells us how high a plane is flying. So there is nothing about better or worse. So flying high is not better than flying low, right? So it serves a different, it depends on what I want to do. If I want to go from Vienna to Colombia, well, it's maybe a smart idea to fly a little bit higher. But if I want to cruise around New York or something like this, it's maybe a smart idea to take a helicopter and fly a little bit lower. So the flight level doesn't tell you anything. So it's not about better or worse, right? It depends on what you do. And the same is true for organizations. In organizations, we can also fly on different altitudes, on different flight levels. If we fly quite low in an organization, we are flying on flight level 1. Flight level 1 is the operational level. Operational level means the teams that are basically doing the operational work, right? So the idea is that we now apply these 5 activities on each team in our organization. So usually an organization has more than only one team. So we would see multiple flight levels, right? Well, multiple flight level 1 systems. So all the teams, they are applying these 5 activities on the team level. So we are flying very low. We can also fly a little bit higher, and sometimes we need to fly higher in organizations because most of the time, actually, one team alone cannot deliver customer value. Most of the time, multiple teams need to collaborate in order to generate value at the customer. And this is exactly where we're flying a little bit higher. That's what we call flight level 2. Flight level 2 is end-to-end coordination, right? So here we have an idea or a customer wish, and here the customer says, awesome, that's what I want to see. From idea to impact, right? And when there are multiple teams involved, we can connect our flight level 2 system with the team systems. So the idea is that we identify these flight level 2 systems in our organization. This is most likely your products, your services, all the stuff actually that's of interest to the customer, right? And if we identify these flight level 2 systems, again, we apply these 5 activities on this flight level 2 system. So we apply the 5 activities on the level 1, but we also apply it on the level 2, which is the world of products and services and whatever is project, whatever is of interest to the customer. The nice thing here is from the point of view of flight level 2, I don't care what method the teams are using. So the teams, they could use COMPAN, they could use Scrum, they could use design thinking, or they could just work. That's also fine, right? So on a flight level 2, we just make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. That's what we are going to do here. We're not talking about methods or something like this. The teams can choose their favorite method. Okay, so flight level 2, as I said before, that's the world product. The world of the organization has more than only one product or only one service. So we would see multiple flight level 2 systems in our organization. So whenever we start with flight levels, we need to make sure that we are identifying these flight level 2 systems, right? And we apply the 5 activities again on all these flight level 2 systems. Sometimes it's also the case that we have dependencies here between our flight level 2 systems. It's often the case that we, I don't know, if we change something in product A, we need to change something in product B, and we need to change something in product C, right? If we are in a situation like this, we can also solve this on a flight level 2 system, because we basically build another system, or we establish some agile interactions where we can manage the dependencies across different products. But that's also a flight level 2 issue that we're going to solve. All right, so we can fly even one level higher in our organization. We can even climb to flight level 3. And on flight level 3, it's about strategy. Strategy means we try to align the work in our systems with the strategy, okay? And we want to make strategy happen. We want to deliver strategy. This means we are connecting the flight level 3 to the flight level 2 and flight level 1 systems. Most of the time, an organization has more than only one strategy level, so we see multiple strategy systems. But yeah, that's also fine. But the point, again, is even on the strategy level, we need to apply our 5 activities, because the 5 activities, they apply everywhere in this organization. So yeah, and this is basically the flight levels. And as I already said before, it's not about better or worse. So flight level 3 is not 3 times better than flight level 1. It's also a different purpose, right? So if your teams are not delivering on flight level 1, you can take the best strategic decisions on flight level 3, but your teams won't deliver, right? So it's not about better or worse. The point is, if we want our organization to act agile on the market, we need to address all these flight levels. And when I say we need to address all these flight levels, this means we need to establish, implement these 5 activities on all 3 flight levels. So this is the overview of flight levels. This is just one part of the flight levels. We will call this the work systems topology later. But before I continue, I would like to have a short pause here. So Jose, could you please share the link? I would like to do a poll with you. So there's a link, hopefully soon, in the chat. Otherwise, just go to polev.com/Klaus222 and please answer this question. What do you think?
Yeah.
Which flight level is the least developed in your organization? Okay. So please try to go to this URL and do some voting. Alrighty, some votes are getting in. That's good. Cool.
Ok, ya el link lo tienen en el chat. Ya pueden ingresar al link.
Nice. Okay, cool. So it seems like many people voted for flight level 2. Oh, flight level 3 is picking up. Yeah, it's cool to see. Okay, flight level 3 is overtaking flight level 2. Flight level 2 is picking up 41%, 43%. Oh, flight level 2. Okay, but we somehow see that flight level 3 and flight level 2 are the least developed in your organizations. And this actually pretty much matches what I see very often in real life. So when we talk about flight levels, the operational level, a lot of organizations get the organizational level really quite well. So we have a lot of answers and solutions. on the operational level. We know Scrum, we know COMPAN, we know a lot of methods that address this. And yeah, now it's 50% says flight level 2. And this actually also somehow matches my experience that flight level 2 is somehow quite important, because many organizations, they do something on a strategic level. So they have something like a strategy board and they have a flight level 1 board, but in many organizations, the link is missing between the strategy and the operation. And this is exactly what flight level 2 is doing. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. All right, this is the first poll. I will have another poll a little bit later, okay? All right, so these were the 3 flight levels. Why is this slide now here? Sorry, okay. Sorry, now I'm good. So what we've seen before were these 3 flight levels, like flight level 1, flight level 2, flight level 3. In real life, I've actually never seen these 3 flight levels like I show it in the overview slide. In real life, it looks more like this. So when we try to discover what are our flight level 1, flight level 2, and flight level 3 systems, that's usually the result what we get. So this is all real flight levels. Yeah, this is all real companies, what you see here. And that's what we call a work systems topology. So a work systems topology basically tells you what are the different flight level systems that we need in our organization. Yeah, that's and how are they connected? That's what we call a work systems topology. So let's zoom into a work systems topology here a little bit. That's a real life work systems topology from an organization. And what they are doing is they basically have a web platform which is dealing with car classifieds. So people can sell cars and other people can buy cars. And they bring buyers and sellers together. And what we see here in this flight levels architecture is that it's often the case that we not just have flight level 1, 2, and 3. There could be also a mixture between flight level 1 and flight level 2. For instance, here you see these are the flight level 1 systems. These are the teams, and they are connected to this flight level 2 system here. But we have something like this. That's a mixture between a flight level 1 and flight level 2 system. Why is this the case? Well, here in business intelligence, I guess only 20 people or so are working. So they are like, okay, we're 2 teams, so it doesn't make a lot of sense if we build 2 boards and coordinate through another board. They were like, we just coordinate, put our work on one common board. And this is a mixture between flight level 1 and flight level 2. Whereas here, where we have 12 teams working on this product here, core experience, each team, they have their own boards where they applied the 5 activities. And then these teams met and they built another system where they basically coordinated across the teams. Yeah. And here, that's a mixture between flight level 2 and flight level 3. So this is also the case. So we can mix flight levels together. And you also see like HR, sales, marketing, they also have their place within the flight levels architecture. So we are not only talking about IT, we're talking about the entire organization that we are mapping in this work systems topology. So a work systems topology basically tells us where do we need to apply these 5 activities. So we need to apply these 5 activities on all what we see here. So it tells us what work systems we need and how they are connected. But that's not enough. So one thing is to know, okay, what boards do we need? But what we also need to know is what are actually the flight items. What is the work that we are managing on which board? So for instance, on the company wall here, flight level 2 and flight level 3. What kind of work do we want to manage here? Most likely not the tasks of the teams, right? This needs to be some more, I mean, if you put up the tasks of 300 people, you don't see anything, right? That's way too much. So we need to make sure, okay, what is the right work that we are managing on each of these flight levels? And that's what we call the flight items. So we need to define what are the flight items. I am showing you an example here. So flight levels doesn't say you have to have these flight items. You need to come up with the flight items in your organization. But this organization I'm currently talking about, this example company, they have these flight items in place. So on the strategy board, this was this company wall, they have the strategy visible on the company wall, on the product boards, and on the team boards. We have a description what we mean with strategy. For instance, epics. You can see epics only on the product level and on the team level. And here we have a short description what it means. So epics in their mind are short-term activities and they last 2 to 6 weeks. Stories, another short-term activity, less than 2 weeks, and we only see stories on the team level. I think that's highly important. We need to have something like this, because what I see quite often in organizations, that all the teams, they are building their boards, but they don't fit together. These guys, they are talking about epics, and then epic is something totally different than another team. They are also talking about epics, but there's a completely different meaning behind it. And if they now need to collaborate, it's quite hard actually. And often it's like, okay, we have work packages here, but you are talking about stories. So how does this fit together? So we need to make sure that we have the same understanding about the work items, the flight items, how we call it in flight levels, in our organization. But this alone is also not enough. We also need to make sure, or we need to generate an idea how these flight items are flying through our organization. What does this mean? Well, we need to come up with something what we call flight routes. So what you see here, and I'm still talking about the example company from before. So it's not like flight level says you have to do it like this. It's an example that I'm showing. So this board, this is the company wall. This was this flight level 2, flight level 3 combination, what we've seen before, if you remember. And this dealer is a flight level 2 system. It's the dealer product. So they are making products for car dealers, right? So we see these two boards. What can we actually see on these boards? Well, here, right at the beginning of the company wall, we see the strategy, the company strategy, and the company KPIs. It's like, okay, that's what we want to do. And we see, based on the KPIs, if we are getting closer to what we want to achieve and not. So we have strategy and KPI visible on the company wall. The dealers, the car dealers, they take this strategy and KPIs and they copy it on their flight level 2 board, on the dealer board, on the product board. And what they are doing is they are splitting it up for their specific product. So they are like, okay, our company strategy is, I don't know, we want to enter, I don't know, the Latin American market. What does this mean for car dealers? What is our strategy? Are we targeting small car dealers? Are we targeting rather the big car dealers? So what is our strategy for the market entry to the Latin American market? So they come up with their strategy and KPIs for their product. So if they know what they're going to do, the next thing what they're doing is they write a canvas. So a canvas, again, only in this example, a canvas basically, somehow describes what we want to achieve. They use Canvas as something like an idea generator. So we have a lot of ideas and we just put them in a canvas, in the description, so that we have a common understanding about this idea. These ideas could be totally huge, like we need 2 years to get them done, or it could be done in a week. So there's no time bound how they use the term canvas. However, it makes sense that we get this time bound. So what they are doing on the flight level 2 system, they generate initiatives out of the canvas. right? So we have this idea, but now we define an initiative. And in their world, an initiative is something that has impact on the market within the next 3 months, right? So we have 3 months time to deliver this initiative to the market and to generate the impact that we want to achieve. Yeah, so it's a clear time bound, less than 3 months. Now one could think, okay, now we know our initiative, we know what we want to deliver to the market within the next 3 months. Let's start working on it. But that's not what they are doing. What they are doing is they take this initiative and they bring it up to the flight level 3 system. And not only this flight level 2 system copies the initiative up to the flight level 3 system, all the other products, they are doing it as well. So we get a bunch of of initiatives of all the flight level 2 systems on the flight level 3. And yeah, some other ideas or initiatives pop in from the side, like, I don't know, the lawmakers often have good ideas what we need to realize to conform some regulations, like general data protection laws and stuff like this. It's stuff like we probably don't want to do, but we have to do it if we want to stay in business, right? So, and the idea is now we have on the flight level 3 system all these ideas, and all these ideas, they are now in competition. So all the initiatives of all the flight level 2 systems, they are in competition. So what this organization is doing is they are doing a strategy planning. They are like, okay, we cannot deliver all these initiatives because usually we always have more ideas than what we are able to deliver to the market. So we cannot deliver all these initiatives within the next 3 months. We need really to come up with a priority, like a stack ranking of what are the initiatives that we are actually able to deliver to the market within the next 3 months. They call this decision strategy planning. So after the strategy planning, we have an idea, okay, that's what we want to deliver to the market within the next 3 months. And this was the flight routes regarding the decision process. After the decision process, the delivery process starts. So now we know, okay, we need to deliver this to the market. Now some technical people join the party, join the meeting, and they're doing a delivery planning. And delivery planning means, okay, from a business perspective, it makes sense to deliver these initiatives to the market, but are we actually able to do it? Are there dependencies? Maybe we need to rearrange the stack ranking because we need to deliver initiative 3 before we deliver initiative 1 because there's a dependency. Yeah. So we do a kind of technical planning for the next 3 months, what we want to deliver to the market. If we know what we want to deliver to the market, the flight routes continue in this organization. And what we're going to do is we copy the initiative from the flight level 3 board again to the flight level 2 board. And now we start to deliver it. The point is, an initiative is quite big. So we're talking about roughly 3 months of work. So that's too big for teams to make sense out of it. So what they are doing, the teams, they split this initiative now into epics. Epics is a smaller work unit where teams actually have an idea of what they need to do in order to deliver it to the market. So this is being done here on the flight level 2 system. And still, for teams, it's quite hard to work on epics. So what they are doing is, on the team level, and I will show you a team board now, on the team board, they pull in the epic from the flight level 2 board and they split it into stories. Because now that's a granularity where teams feel somehow comfortable to work on. Okay? Yeah, and what you've seen here is the flight routes of this organization. And you've actually only seen 2 flight routes. In organizations, we usually have way more flight routes. So I have aggregated all the flight routes of this organization into one picture, and this picture looks like this. So this is all the flight routes that we see in this organization. Why do I think are flight routes very important? Well, as everything in flight levels, so flight levels is not like Flight levels is nothing theoretical. In flight levels, everything is born out of pure practice. And flight levels were also born out of the flight routes, sorry, were also born out of pure practice. And it was a customer. So I was working with a customer and they were like, yeah, we built a lot of these boards here, but we have a problem. It somehow doesn't work. We don't know what's going on. And I was like, okay, let's take a look. So I asked them, okay, let's bring all the boards that you have in your organization in one room. So we brought all the boards into one room. So we drew some sketches from boards that we couldn't actually bring into the room. And we basically had all the boards or some sketches and representations of the boards of this organization in one room. And then we tried to generate value for the customer. So we were like, okay, I have an idea. On which board can I put this work item, this work on this idea? And they were like, well, usually it pops up over there on this board. Okay, so we put it on this board. And now this team is working on it. And now it needs to go to another team over there. They were like, okay, but this doesn't work because they are talking about epics. We're talking about ideas here. So this doesn't map. And the point is, we were not able to generate value for the customer for one single idea in this organization. So the point is they had a lot of boards, but they didn't fit together, right? It's like a puzzle and all the puzzle pieces are out of you, and it's nice to have all these puzzle pieces, but I can't do anything with it, okay? So yeah, that's why I think we really need to think about not only building these boards and not only building the boards on the different levels, we also need to glue the boards together. Otherwise, it's just not happening. Okay, so it's just one more slide actually, which where I try to wrap up everything. So what you've just seen is something what we call a flight levels systems architecture. So what is a flight level system architecture? When you're doing flight levels, you need to know what are your work systems, the boards that you need to build, on which flight level, and how are they connected. That's what we call a work systems topology. So when you're doing flight levels, you need to come up with a work systems topology. A work systems topology alone is not enough. You also need to identify your flight items. This means which work is managed on what system on your topology, right? That's what we call flight items. And it's, again, that's not enough. We need to come up with one more thing, and that's what we call flight routes. Flight routes is, okay, now we know this is the boards that we need. This is the work that we need to manage on the board. But usually work is flying across these boards. And that's what we need to model, or that's what we need to identify when we are talking about flight routes. So flight routes is basically how is work flying through your organization in order to generate value for the customer. And that's what we call a so-called flight levels system architecture. So a flight level system architecture consists of the work systems topology, the flight items, and the flight routes. And there's even a training, a workshop, which is called Flight Level Systems Architecture, what we as a Flight Levels Academy offer, where you basically can design this flight level system architecture, like topology and routes and items for your organization. And yeah, we teach you how you get to this point to come up with this architecture. So these were the three things regarding the flight level system architecture. I would like to do one more poll. It's a very quick poll. If you just go back to this URL, polev.com/Klaus222, just press reload in your browser and please try to answer this question. Where do you see a lack of clear understanding in your organization? Like where do you think, okay, we are not doing this well in our organization? The work systems topology is not very good in your organization. The flight items the flight routes, or are you like, nah, we are great, we do all of these things? So what is missing in your organization? What is a clear understanding missing in your organization? Work systems topology, flight routes is already here. Yeah, more votes get in. Okay. Flight routes and work systems topology, flight items. Yeah, I also see that flight items are not always so clear. Okay, the topology is in front currently. Flight items are picking up. Yeah. Okay. So you guys think that the topology is one of the most missing things in your organization, followed by the routes and followed by the items. Interesting. It pretty much is what I see quite often. So most of the time, like topology and flight routes are pretty much the same. We have somehow an understanding of what to manage where in terms of the flight items, but I think I don't see a lot of organizations who really have all this stuff in place. So yeah, visit the flight level system architecture workshop and find it out for your organization. Advertising. Okay, so if I try to wrap this up, what I was going to tell you in the past, it was almost an hour actually. I think one thing totally came clear to me in the past 10 years when I was trying to somehow convince people about flight levels, talk about flight levels, and somehow get people out of the team level. So whenever we talk about business agility, and business agility is something completely different than team agility. Whenever we talk about business agility, it's totally not about methods and frameworks. Business agility is about the interaction of your work systems. And that's what we are trying to teach you in Flight Levels Academy. We try to get organizations to this point that they understand that an organization is not the sum of all the agile islands. We need to connect all these agile initiatives, all these agile teams, all these agile whatever is going on in your organization. We need to connect it if we want to act agile on the market. Without this, you probably end up in a bunch of agile islands somewhere, but you won't act agile on the market. That's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Just a friendly reminder, you can get the book with this coupon code if you like. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, I read the questions. So the next question is from Cesar Mejia. What do you think about how to improve human interactions in a company totally oriented in the numbers, and this causes internal competency between the collaborators? So what do you think, or what do you recommend to improve the human interactions?
To improve the human interactions. So I guess I don't know if I understand the question totally right, but I think improving the human collaboration, the human interactions, it's actually most of the time it shouldn't be a big deal if we are somehow following the same goal. What I see, if I have my own goal and you have your goal, maybe you have a bonus, I have a bonus, I want to earn my bonus, and you want to earn your bonus, then it's getting quite tricky. So if we really find some alignment, something which somehow unites us, like, okay, we are working on the same stuff, and if you succeed, it's also good for me, this usually helps quite a lot. In my experience, just as one thing. And I hope I understood the question right. Does this make sense?
I think that yes, for sure. But Cesar, if you want to, I don't know, amplify the answer, Cesar said, "Thank you, Klaus." So I think that the answer makes sense. Thank you.
Cool.
Arnulfo, tell us the flight levels increase a little friction in the organization, or instead it serves as a lubricant for these activities?
I think it should remove the friction in the organization. So, because what we want to do with flight levels is we want that the entire organization actually is collaborating. So we try to somehow, yeah, combine everything that's going on in the organization for the bigger good, if this makes sense. So it's not about, okay, you are an agile team, I'm an agile team, but I'm much more agile and better, whatever, than you. It's more like we want to somehow unite this, if this makes sense. Does this answer the question?
Yes, I think that yes, but Arnulfo, let us know by the chat, please. The next question is there a flight level certification?
Yes, there is one. So the Flight Levels Academy is actually a very new organization. So we just started. And if you take a look at the website, it looks awful these days, but we are just working on a new website. So we are building it up. So currently, yes, there is a certification. We have different training programs like the Flight Levels Introduction, Flight Level Sport Design, where we build, where we basically teach you how to build boards on the different flight levels. Flight Level System Architecture, what I've just shown you here, where we try to find out, okay, what are actually the boards that you need? So what is your work system topology? What are your flight items? What are your flight routes? And there's always a certification tied to it. And we also have something like the flight level coaches and the flight level guides. And this is people who are also teaching this stuff. And actually we already have quite some alumni. So we currently have, I guess, 400 people or 500 people or so who already went through the flight level training globally. And if you go to flightlevelsacademy.com, within the next weeks, you will see quite a lot of training program there listed. And we move quite a lot of business to the a lot of courses to the online market. And we also offer, and I guess that's maybe interesting for you, PPP pricing, like power purchase parity prices. So for Latin America, the courses are cheaper, like for, I don't know, for the Europeans. So we try to get some equality in terms of price into our offering. Yeah.
Thanks for us for thinking about this region, Klaus. Thank you.
I guess that's really important to us. Yeah.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Klaus, can you give us some examples of the KPIs used with the company strategy to generate the canvas and initiatives?
That's a good one. So I will give you a rather a more general answer, but I guess it's better than just listing particular KPIs where we don't have a connection. So I think especially on a flight level 3, building the flight level 3 system is not the huge challenge. I guess it's quite easy to build the system, but it's important what we see on the flight level 3. So what is actually, what are we making visible there? And one thing is that we are making this OKRs, KPIs, all these strategy kind of things visible there. And the thing is, it makes sense that we really spend a lot of effort in defining these KPIs, OKRs, because we can, for instance, come up with measurements that are binary, where you cannot actually measure them. Like, for instance, the concept of something has to be finished. A concept is a binary measurement, so it's always 0%. And when it's done, it's 100%. And, and everything in between is just gut feeling, right? And with a concept, I as a customer, I cannot do a lot. right? And then there's another thing. We need to hopefully define these measurements, KPIs, OKRs, as lead measures and not as lag measures. What does this mean? A lag measurement would be, for instance, if I want to lose weight, okay? A lag measurement is my current weight. So if I stand on the scale, I see my weight, but I don't know how my weight will be in the future. So I just see the current state. Lead measurements basically tell me in the future what is going on. So a lead measurement, so if my goal is that I want to lose weight, a lead measure would be, for instance, calorie intake or how many hours I do exercise per week. And if I know I have a lot of, I have less calorie intake and I measure this, and I measure that I'm doing, I don't know, I go running 8 hours a week, I know that in the future, my weight is going down. So for a business, it's really important to come up with these lead measurements, right? Like for instance, okay, if we want to become faster or something like this, how do we see it today that in the future we're becoming faster? Because otherwise it's always too late when we see the measurement. And that's what we really try, where we really try to invest some time on the flight level 3 to come up with good KPIs. So it's not everything about revenue and stuff like what EBIT and all these measurements. They are important, of course, because without revenue, a business is not able to survive, right? But it's way more important to come up with some measurements which actually lead us in the future, if this makes sense. I hope this answers the question.
For sure. It's possible to start the next one, sorry, for Anthony, from Anthony Cabrera. It's possible to start with one level at first, then when the top management view results, implement the next levels?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. I didn't mention it. That's exactly what we are going to do. So usually when we are starting with flight levels in an organization, what we are doing is we build this work system, we build the flight level system architecture. So we build the topology, we know all the systems that we want to build later. But then we don't roll it out like, okay, we build all the system at once. We're like, okay, what do we want to achieve with flight levels? And where do we think do we get the biggest bang for the buck, right? So where shall we start? And then we identify, for instance, okay, we need to build this flight level 2 system, the dealer system in the example I was shown before, and maybe, I don't know, the OEM board. And then we build these systems, we get information, we know how this works, and then we merge. Now we probably build the flight level 3 system. Now we build probably some team boards. So that's the natural way of how you're introducing flight levels into an organization. You don't do a big bang, you build your flight level system architecture, and this, you derive an idea of what are good next steps, and then you build it iteratively. And I guess that's very important that we work like this, because whenever we build a new system, we learn, of course.
Sure. Jose Lee, tell us, and now that we don't have post-its, and physical boards, what tool do you recommend for to see the 3 levels?
Yeah, so honestly, I'm a fan of tools. Actually, especially in the digital world, I think it makes sense to work with tools. The question is, when do we start with our tools? Because it's usually not so easy to use one of these tools. There are really good tools on the market. For instance, COMPAN. With COMPAN, you can do the 3 flight levels. Something like Swift is also a tool where you can build the 3 flight levels. I think Linkit, I haven't seen Linkit for quite a while, but it was already able, I was already able to do it 3 years or 4 years ago when I last time worked with Linkit to build these flight levels. So that's usually not a problem, but always be aware of when you introduce one of these tools, it's quite some effort that you need to do. So yes, you can link 2 boards together, but you build a relationship. But what relationship is it? Is it a child-parent relationship? Is it a sibling relationship? So it really, you have so many possibilities to do it, and it really takes some time to get to the point. So these days, in time of Corona, which is another thing, a lot of people work from home. Where I've really good experience with is when people start with tools like Miro or Mural. Miro and Mural are basically, it's just a virtual whiteboard. And what companies do on this virtual whiteboard, they basically build their boards like they would do on a physical whiteboard. And yeah, but they are in the virtual world. And that's a quite good start, because you have all the flexibility of a whiteboard, actually, of a physical tool, but you're still in the online world. And these days, I don't know how long this will last with Corona, but I think, yeah, we need to come up with ideas what we do these days.
I caught a part of the Joseli question, because he was talking about big projects like 70 initiatives, 300 epics, 3,000 user stories. Do you think that those tools help with that sort of big projects?
I mean, COMPAN and such for sure. And I think also Miro and Mural, I mean, I don't know how many people are working, I mean, in terms of computational power, because they are quite resource hungry, what I know when I run my remote workshops, because we're using Miro, for instance. Actually, I don't know what's happening if, don't know, 300 people are looking at the Miro board. So the honest answer is, I don't know. I hope it will work.
Okay, thanks. We have 3 questions more. This is from Dario Palminio. This seems to work with lean value tree. Any ideas how it can work with LBT?
LBT is what?
Lean value tree.
Okay, yeah. Lean value tree. I don't know this concept. I know lean value streams.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know what it is.
If Dario can send another question, maybe in Spanish, and we try to translate it, because Klaus doesn't understand and I don't recognize this lean value tree concept either.
Yeah.
We continue with the next one. Is from Alberto Regalado. In your opinion, which agility framework or business agility framework, again, sorry, it's my English. It's because my English. What do you think about the McKinsey's business agility framework, or the Spotify that a lot of Latin American companies is trying to implement? What do you think about those models?
Okay, to be honest, I don't know the McKinsey model. I know the BCG model because it's used with some of our customers. But I think McKinsey and BCG, Boston Consulting Group, is pretty much the same category. Well, how can I be diplomatic with this answer? Let me put it that way. I know a company in Thailand, in Bangkok, which is using the BCG, I guess they call it Enterprise at Scale model or so. And I know what they pay for it. And I know that it's basically, if you translate it, so what I see or their implementation is basically project management with sticky notes and a little bit of the Spotify model. So that's what they are doing in Bangkok. And I have another customer here in Europe, in Hamburg, and they are doing exactly the same thing in Hamburg. So how can I be diplomatic enough? So I think if we just, so they charge quite a lot for analysis. So I guess it was really a figure in the million euros, which is really, it's a huge number, just to analyze what they need to do. And then I fly to Bangkok and I see exactly the same in Hamburg. And there's a little bit of distance in between and some millions of analyzing work. So I don't know how they really work, but they are really good in earning money, I think. I don't know. This was not a real answer, but I guess you can somehow sense what I want to say.
Okay. Alberto, let us know if you want to know anything more specific or something like that. We have another one in the chat from Paul. How do you start to align the organizations when each department work in an independent way and works is a global company? It's very big. Everyone works independent. How do you start to align?
Mm-hmm. Well, usually a good alignment point is the flight level 2. So yes, probably we are working in different departments. Maybe we're even working in different companies. Like if you take a huge group and maybe we have some branches in Latin America, some in Europe, and they somehow need to collaborate. And usually the collaboration point is the flight level 2, because on the flight level 2, what we are doing there is we identify the products and services. So in the first step, we don't care about the organizational structure. We don't care about departments, about all this stuff. We don't care about it. We just focus on what are your products and services that you want to bring to the market. So we identify the flight level 2 systems, and in the next step, we're asking the question, whom from the organization do we need to work on these flight level 2 systems? And then we map in the different departments and everything. And then it's actually getting clear for the department who needs to collaborate. So that's usually quite a good trick. So whenever we start with flight levels, we try to start on a flight level 2, because this is exactly where you can address the question.
Okay, thanks. And Alberto Regalado says, is from your experience, how much time do you need to reach a good level or at the adequate level in each a part of your company?
Mm-hmm. When you do flight levels, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it highly depends. It highly depends on how agile an organization already is. So we see quite a lot of organizations who had a huge Scrum transformation or something like this. So the company I was talking about here, they had a huge Scrum transformation, I guess 4 or 5 years ago. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. Our Scrum teams are working, but still, we don't see impact on the market. And then if you go in an organization where they already know what agility is, like what I've just explained here, everything is of course much faster. So in this organization, we didn't have to do anything on the team level, because the teams, they were using Scrum and they were totally happy with it. We just had to make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. So we basically did quite a lot of work on a flight level 2 and on a flight level 3. And well, basically we were done in a couple of weeks. And other companies, if they even don't know how to spell agile, it could take years, I guess, because you really, you have to tell them, why do we want to do this? And you have to talk about what does create focus mean and so on, because the flight level thinking or the flight level way of approaching change is, we want to include the organization. So we don't want to push it into the organization. We want to include it. And if they have no freaking clue what agility is, it takes way longer. But if there's already some knowledge already there, and especially when you're already doing Scrum, when you're already doing COMPAN, but this is just islands. With flight levels, it's really fast. You just connect the islands together, and yeah, we're done in a couple of weeks, actually.
Thanks, Klaus. The people is very... I don't wait for the translation, sorry. Cristina. Okay, so the next question is, because the people is like asking more. So Paul Ramos said us, fly level ask or suggest to change the organizational structure?
No. Thanks for this question as well. I didn't mention it, but it's a very good question. So when you are starting with flight levels, the idea is that you leave the organizational structure like it is. You basically build something what we call a virtual organization. This means you are like, okay, we identify our flight level 2 systems. And then, as I already said before, no matter where in the org chart the teams are sitting, they collaborate across the flight level 2 systems and across the flight level 3 system. So you don't change the organizational structure. And that's actually quite sexy, especially for big organizations, for large organizations, because with flight levels, they build a kind of virtual organization first, where just the people from the different teams and departments start to collaborate without changing the org chart. And then if you see, oh, wow, that's actually really cool, the way how these people coordinate now, then we can think of doing a reorganization. But that's not the first step, because we always think, okay, when we are doing a reorganization, we want to, we will find a way of how we can work without dependencies. But I have never, ever seen an organization on this planet which actually has no dependencies. So there are always dependencies, no matter. So you will always end up in silos. You end up in cross-functional silos. You end up in product silos, in customer segment silos, in process silos. No matter how you organize, how you structure your organization, you will always end up in silos somewhere. So the point is not to find the next best, okay, reorganization, and now we are finally without silos. You will always end up in a silo. So use flight levels to build the virtual organization. And if you see, wow, this one works really great, okay, cool, make a reorganization. But that's not the first step.
Okay, Sebastian Gomez say, have to run another meeting. Thank you, Klaus, for your for ideas and for your book. I appreciate your generosity and coolness to share your knowledge. Also, thanks to Agility. Thank you, Sebastian, for your comment. We have another questions. I think that the question from Carla we answered before, or Klaus answered before, but I am telling again. In your experience, how long does it take to have an adequate level in each flight level?
In each flight, you mean if we build the system? So I think it's really like what I said before. It depends on how much understanding is already there in an organization. So if they are already good, you have already agile teams or something like this, we're talking about weeks. If nothing is there, we're talking about, I don't know, infinity. And maybe you will never get to the point.
Sure. And Jose Morales asks, who plays the role of PMO, VMO, Value Managed Office, in flight levels?
I don't know VMO, but I like the term actually, sounds cool. But I know PMO, like the Project Management Office. Well, like what I said before, if we really think evolutionary, so we don't do a reorganization. So it's basically like how we did it before. And we start with this, and when you're doing flight levels, as I said in the very beginning, flight levels doesn't tell you don't have to have, don't know, PMOs, and if you have PMOs, you will burn in flight levels hell or something like this. No, flight levels basically helps you to understand what's going on in your organization. So if your starting point is somewhere where you have PMOs, VMOs, I don't know what, you start with flight levels and you see, okay, are we getting the value out of it as we like it? So you can start with it, but it doesn't mean that, or there is no guarantee that they are still there in 3 years or so, but they could be there in 10 years. It really depends on your organization, and it depends on how you are actually using the flight levels to generate your learnings. And there is a rule of thumb, like the more innovative your organization is, the more uncertainty there is in your organization, the more likely you won't have PMOs in the future. But if it's like, I don't know, if it's not a lot of uncertainty in your business and you're doing, more or less maintaining the current state, and it's just a rule of thumb, right? PMOs are actually quite good. So it depends on your context in the end.
Sure, we end the questions, and we have almost most than 35 people. So Klaus, thank you very much for everything. Your generosity with us was a very good talk. We collect a lot of information, and we reinforce the idea that business agility is more than just to follow a method or just to follow a recipe. Agility is not a recipe. So we are very happy to having with us.
Thank you, Sandra, and yeah, thank you for having me. Cool, it was a pleasure.